Do you know that feeling? It's something inside you. It comes to you, inside you, even if you don't want to. It makes fear, anxiety. Sometimes you might experience that only for a little brief moment, or even for a longer time. I'm sure we can relate to that. When I think about that feeling, and when I got that feeling for the most intense time, it was some years ago. A friend just called me in the afternoon, like, hey, and I picked up the phone and answered like, hey Dee, how are you doing? And she said, not good. I was like, not good? Not good means what? Yeah, Andrew had an accident. He's in the hospital. And that was shocking for me. She explained that they don't know if he will make it or not. So I went to the hospital, gathered with the others. So we sat there in the chapel and did the only thing we could do at that moment. We prayed that he will make it. And I remember that moment when his family came after a long while and told us that at least he would make it through. We didn't know how he would make it through, if he would have any disabilities or any circumstance. And I remember that feeling of uncertainty. Later on, they told us that when they brought him to the hospital, he was a 9 out of 10. 10 is death. So he was very short before that, and they didn't believe he would make it, he would recover. And he did recover fully. He got married, he has children. And for me, that still stays a miracle, but also a very deep moment of that you feel that uncertainty. What's going on? Will it go well? Will it go at all? So that's something where it's to its full extent. But you might also have experienced that this morning when you just came to the conference and you were unsure what will happen, how will the talks be, who will you meet. You don't know before, and you're in that moment. And I think long before that was even harder, but we have a bit of technology, so some uncertainties we can manage a bit better. So maybe you put out your phone and check your messages while you're waiting, and you already get feedback. You get this nice 2 signs there. At least made it to the other one's phone. And then you're more lucky and they turn and you know, hey, you already received it. So your uncertainty is a bit of going in one direction, that you have some feedback, that you know a bit. And I also felt this anxiety just before the talk. So of course I also reached out, what maybe most of us do, and then ask and So he's even typing. So let's see what he says about surviving. Oh, he got distracted. Anyways, so let's talk about speed. Illusion of speed is the talk. So what is speed? There's distance and there's time. So if you imagine me walking, I have a certain speed. There's a distance up to you, and you can measure that. Yeah, you can put out your phone, or a bit more classical, that one, and it is measurable. We agree on that? Okay, wonderful. But still, we have that feeling, like when you imagine your own website, you open it and it looks like this, and there you feel it again. Will it ever load? What will come? What might it be? And there we feel that we can be fast. Like we can try to have the best connection, the best servers. And there are a lot of talks telling you about like how you can go from there, and be as like the best website performance. Maybe some of you already digged into that deeper, what you can do. There's a whole lot you can do, but maybe your users still feel it's slow or it takes a lot of time. And there's that uncertainty there. So we have a different perception. If we're in a waiting room waiting for a message, there are different ones. So let's do a little test if we really so much percept that. So this is option 1. It's like a progress bar going backwards. And there are 3 options of it. So that was 1. And there is option 2. It's the same thing. It's going backwards. And I might abstract you a bit and walk around. So maybe you see that. And then you have option 3. You might keep talking or watching, you watch your neighbor, you get distracted by your phone. Great. So, which one was the fastest? Who's for option 1? Just raise your hand if you think option 1 was the fastest. Okay. 2 up there, 1 there. Oh, sorry. Option 2. Who thinks option 2 was the fastest one? Some there. And, oh, I'm sorry, option 3. Oh, majority. Okay, let's look at that all together. So they have different speeds. So in fact, option 2 was the fastest one. But it was hard to get. So if you would have a website and let's say on a very slow 3G, it would take 10 seconds and you can have a huge effort to bring it down to like 8 seconds. They couldn't decide if it was 8 or 12. For us, that we think that's a huge difference, 8 or 12. But still, it's for most users, it will be just imperceptible. So you can spend a lot of money to bring it from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, but that will not make you win the game. So what can you do? Be fast, yes, but then you have to guide and entertain, because 8 seconds might feel very long if you're waiting, for example, for the next, what's the next train, and you're waiting for 8 seconds, that might cause that you might leave, or if you're a shopping site, that will even harm you more. And so you have to work on the perception side, because otherwise your users will feel this, hey, I did something, why is nothing in the world changing? Why is nothing coming back to me? So if you look at waiting, you have 2 times. You have this massive active one and a passive one. Active one, your brain is still thinking. You're still processing information. You have some text you're still reading. And then you enter that passive state where you're just waiting. And that's something we would like to avoid. So even worse, we overestimate this passive waiting. So research says it's over 36, so even that feels much longer if you're in a passive state. But there's also good news. Humans have 1 second to transition from the one state to the other. So if you're only 1 second, you can't enter a passive state. You will already be active. So we can use that and try to shift that as much as we can towards that, to be active, to still give information, to still be there, and we can use that time to explain what's going on. So for example, what can you do to stay active or to let your users be in the loop? One thing you can do is a transition. So here someone clicked on their submit button or send an email, and you get that nice animation. That bridges 3.6 seconds, and you don't feel that you had waited, that the email got sent, because it explained you, hey, it's going on, and it even got your feedback, it went well. So that's one point you can do in this, even this first thing where the user interacts, give real immediate feedback about that. And even more, if that's longer, tell a story. That's what we do to children when you have to wait. We don't say, please sit there waiting. We're like, hey, I tell you a story, and you bridge the time until something happens. And that's kind of an old thing, like a lot of games do that. Maybe some of you know this when you start a game and they first tell you what's going on, who you are, what's your mission. We do that in games, but why don't we do that in websites? There's also something that will happen, there will be some mission, something the user might face and need to overcome. So let's tell them that. And even I found an example Windows XP did that. So when you install that, maybe you were a completely freshly user to that operating system. It told you a wonderful fairy tale. Oh no, story. It will be faster and more reliable. Believe me. It was worse before. And so you went through this installation, and very nicely it showed you the progress. Things were going on, those are the steps. Even inside the steps, you got this nice progress bar. So you were really, this took maybe half an hour or an hour. But it nicely went you through every time you came back. It was a bit more, and it told you another story. So you could stick to that. And as we are already here into progress bars, let's look at progress indicators. First of all, the downside, they push you into passive state. When you see a progress bar, you definitely know you're waiting. Before you can hide that, but if you see that, you know someone is making you wait. But still, at some point, that's what you would like to indicate to bridge that time and at least give that feedback, at least something is happening. And that is happening in some way. You can even use your CI, your brand to show a bit of it, to give it a special flavor. And people might look at that for some time just to see the animation, to go see what's going on. And then hopefully you already bitched the time. So that's easy and that's honest. I don't know how long you will be sitting there. It will spin. Facebook tried to be even super smart, so they tried in their lab 2 different versions. You see the one and the other, you might think what's the difference? The first one is the Facebook loading indicator, and the second one is the iOS spinner. So for the first one, people thought, oh, Facebook is really slow today. And the other one was, oh, something's wrong with my phone. That's not Facebook, that's my phone loading. They never published it, they never did that in real, but they tried that out. So you can even change perception there to what is making you wait. So going into the progress bar thing, which one feels faster for you? There will be 3 options again, and you just try to figure out, as in the first example, which one is the fastest over there. So there was option 1, use option 2. And there is option 3. Okay, who's in for option 1 was the fastest? Okay. For option 2? Majority there, okay. And option 3? Nearly 50-50 in the end. So let's watch that. It tricked you a bit. But you're not alone, so studies show that feels 12% faster. And it's due to humans. When you would sit in a train and the landscape would pass by, you would feel you're faster. If even another train arrives, the train has a speed, you have a speed, so you feel that you even go double the speed. Maybe you can watch that next time you're in a train. It will feel faster because things are moving by. It can either be on the progress bar or in the background, but that there is more going on, more processing, we feel it's faster. So that's a bit of human tricking there, hacking users' perception. And you can also do what many fun parks are doing. You can overestimate the time. If you tell someone wait for 5 minutes and you come back in 3, he will say, oh, that was fast. And that's also what they do. They say it will take a long time, and you start waiting, and then the progress will be faster in the end. And that's also maybe what you know from those old ones where you copied a lot of files, maybe some floppy disks. They also use that you will remember more the end of something. You will not remember so much the beginning. Maybe that's the time when you go for a coffee. But then you come back and you think, oh yeah, in the end it was quite fast. And that's what we perceive, but still if you do that, be aware you are incorrect to your users. So balance if you want to do that. And yeah, you can even do worse. So if you indicate progress, you should make sure that it's really relating to real times and not something going mad there, because then you will lose trust, and that's something you definitely don't want to do, lose trust of your users. That's what you try to keep, like you would as a human person. If someone speaks to you, you would answer, or at least say, wait a second. You wouldn't just like, hopefully you would not do that. So still the best progress bar is no progress bar. But if you have to show indication, and that's at the moment the only thing you can do, if it's 1.2 seconds, you will feel that it's still instant, so you don't need anything there. For 1 second, it's still, we think that that's kind of an action or interaction. Before we will feel more that it's natural, because it's more like how physics react, like when we do something, it will react, and we need some time to perceive, so that's the little thing of time we have. And if it goes further, you might like look out of a window, you might look at your watch, your phone, but still you will know, okay, I'm still waiting for something there, I hope it will happen. And afterwards, up to 8 or 10 seconds, depends on which study you're looking at, there you will lose the attention. People will not think that your website will load if 10 seconds nothing happened. They will do something else. And studies tend to show that this time span will be even shorter and shorter because we get used to fast websites. So it plays a bit against us. So being more in what you should do. So first you can use transition. You just nicely show what's going on, what's happening in the next state, you bring them in. Afterwards, if it's just a short time, a little spinner might bridge that. If it's longer, would be nice if you indicate some kind of progress, what's happening there. If you would show a progress bar in the beginning, it would be too fast. It would just happen and you're like, what? What was that? So that's kind of the order that you can do. But yeah, after 10 seconds, what do you do? If you know I have to process a lot of data, maybe you do some data mining or some whatever, what can you do? You can be honest and say, hey, in the worst case, I'll come back to you when it's ready. Google does that for one, where when you want to download huge data from your personal stuff, they just send you the link and say, hey, now it's ready. They don't make you stick on the website waiting for a progress bar. They know it will take some time. So be honest there if the waiting time is too long. But now let's move on. Like now we've explored more what can we do, what is like pragmatic, what is human perception. Let's try to do more and go more into a magic thing there that our users will not get. They will get a spinner and a loading indicator, but what else can we do? Let's watch this one. No. I'm sorry, I think it wasn't working. Wasn't that important. So you would think it's just disappearing, but he was just drawing your attention away from that. So what you can do now actively is to start before your users know that you started. So in the beginning, they will not be aware because they're still like shopping on your website, but you already do a lot of stuff. Maybe you preload something, and let's stick what you can else do. Maybe that's something you already know, like prefetch stuff. But what else you can do is like make that time the user perceives even shorter, because normally you know your users clicks and then you start to load the new resource. What else? You already get some indicators. It's not that it happened out of the blue and he clicks. There was already a mouse down. That event is even before. And even before that, he hovered, he approached the button. So you already can think like, if I go to you, you will know I will be there. So that's something we can also do with a mouse or a touch. And there's a nice library for that. I think it's because of the internet. I'm sorry. No. Okay. And then I just tell you. It's called FutureLink, and it will predict for you that the user might click on that link. So when the mouse is approaching that link, it will predict if he will click or not. And based on that, you can already start fetching content. So you don't have to fetch everything, but you already have indicators and you can save some time there. So when you want to try that out on their website, maybe, no, okay. When I tried it out, it was 600 milliseconds. So that's a lot where you can already go and fetch data, and he will think like, wow, that was super fast, because you started 600 milliseconds earlier than he thought things will start loading. And also you can push on the other side and already not wait until it's completely finished. So they don't mind maybe that you're not completely done if you already can show something. And that's will really shrink it down to the last thing that your user will perceive from all the time you really need to that bit. And that's, I think, something we can celebrate there. But first, see how we can do it. You know that maybe you want to look at talks from last year or 2 years ago, and you already get that nice indication here. So it only loaded here. So from all the way to there, it only has very, very little. But for me, as I start here, that's completely fine. So YouTube doesn't wait until the complete video loaded. They just start when they know they can have a fluent playback. So that's some nice thing where you can also give your users content. If you're not YouTube, not videos, what else can you do? It's a bit like this. You're thinking, oh, wow, you're already helping. So how can that help look like? If you're normally having CSS, you just have your style sheet, maybe prefetch stuff. But what you can do is inline the most important things. So first, just for the frame you're using. And then down to the end, you do some magic for the real whole CSS. There's a nice website for that. It will not load either, but you just enter your URL and you will get something like this. And this is what you can just copy paste and see how it looks. It should already look quite nice. You can tune a bit, or you can also use it if you're a larger website. You would maybe more do it like that, like a separate inline file that you then, while you process, put into the HTML. So you don't want to do that by hand every time, but you might separate into files that with CSS that is really important, that should be inline, and the other ones that are not that important, and you can just load them later. You can also have like a minimal version that is just maybe a background and a frame, and then afterwards you will enhance with an avatar, with some specialities, some icons. That's something you don't need in the first place, because maybe first your users needs to read the article before he clicks the like button down there. So that's a nice thing you can do. The German website did that, and that's what's the difference. So above you see the old version, below you see the new version, and you see how much earlier the user already knows there's something, and then he can start reading already, where in the old version he still had to wait. You also see in the above version, if you watch again, a spinner, so the user already knew that here he was waiting for more, while here he didn't perceive that. In the below version, you don't see he's waiting for something because there's already something. But in fact, that thing down there isn't there already, but it looks like, and you will start reading the first part anyway. So how did they do that? So first, a short note about the inline CSS. It was 40% faster that you already saw something. But of course, your HTML got a little bit bigger because you shipped the inline CSS with it. but I think 40% faster is something you really would like to go for. So now come, instead of this loading indicator, to something more advanced, content placeholders. So the time is the same. If you look in comparison, the time is the same, but on the right, it feels much better because you already will know the structure, there will be articles, there will be photos, so my eye can already find out the right place where to start. So I'm already will have some time anyways where I perceive the structure, and that time I can already start before and then have that come in. So how will you do that? You will have this skeleton that is showing like a real thing but not filled with content, and then afterwards you load the real thing before you hide that. You say just display none, but everything is in there, so the browser will load everything in there, and then you need an indicator when to switch, so when you're ready. And in your CSS, it's very simple. You just give, it's like a box where you just do a little animation that people know there's something coming. So this is super easy. And will result in something like this. This is just one part. Of course, if you do it for a whole website, you would take the website and see where's the content and then place it there. But that's just for the basic. So this, whoa, that was fast. So this little CSS part will already result in something that you can place on your website. And YouTube is doing that as well. So if you load, you will already know the structure, and then this is on a slow 3G. It will load the content, but also the content when it now comes. Look, if you realize it or not. It didn't come completely at one. You first saw the images, and then you saw the duration and the avatars. So also there, they try to bring in the important content first, and already give you a nice impression of the structure. Okay, what else can you do? So now we already shrinked it from every side and tried our very best to ship something as early as possible to our users. We can be even more optimistic about that. Maybe you heard about optimistic UI. What is it? If you know everybody will go in the same direction, like on that motorway, you don't have a way for each car because you know it will go well, it will go straight. And that's something you can also do in your UI. So for example, on Twitter, if you click on the nice heart and say, I like that quote, what really happens, the request was still pending. So Twitter was telling already, hey, the heart like went red, so I assumed the request went through. But honestly, the request didn't went through, but it would be a bad feeling if I always have to wait until it really becomes red. And why should I wait for that? There's no use that I wait for that. So they do it still pending. At least they are clever if it's, so yeah, it's deceptive. If it fails, they will go back to the initial state, and at least then when I would look at it and say like, I gave it a heart, I would realize it didn't make it through. But initially, they were very optimistic about their requests and about their service, and I think Twitter can be that, to already show that. So let's come to another perception. Who has that perception? Maybe you're playing table football at work. At least that's my impression when I play with my colleagues, and I was so fast, I was like, I mean, I know the ball is gone, so I think it was in that goal, but I didn't see it. And that might harm you. So now when you try and go home and be as fast as you can, be aware that there is also a too fast. So let's look at this. Those are two images with one change. So something in this picture changes. Do you spot that? Don't say what it is, just like nod or raise your hand, you saw it. It's not that easy because there's this gray, thank you, there's this gray flickering in between, and then makes your brain not get the difference. So in fact, if you look up there, there's another tree. And they just made them. But it took me a long, long while to figure it out. I looked at like 10 of those images and like, how? But that's human perception. We don't see change if there's something in between or if we are looking at another point. So also mind the context. If your computer takes 5 seconds to boot, you would say it's super slow. That's too slow. But if someone would make a chili con carne in 5 seconds, I'm not sure I would like to eat that. So that would be too fast. So your users have an expectation what time that should take. And that can even harm your business if you're not meeting that expectations. So for example, Coinstarn, that's something in America. You bring your coins that you collected and you put it in, and they will count how many coins you gave to them, and you get a nice voucher. That's super nice for you, but it was too fast. People thought it can't have calculated right. They complained it didn't calculate right. So the single thing they changed is they waited a bit longer. So people thought, oh yeah, in that time you can calculate those coins. That's fine, no complaints. So be aware of that there might be an anticipation. Also when you try to indicate you're processing a lot of data, you might want to show with a little animation that you're processing that data, because if it's instant there, they might not be sure if that's really new and fresh data or if that's something you just came to them with the cache. So also fast might be easy and easy might be cheap. So that's also something to be aware of in the background. And of course, longer wait times. The longer you wait, maybe in front of an Apple store overnight, you will think like, if I wait so long, it must be wow. And you build up that anticipation. So there might be some cases where you want that, where you might want to ask users, do you really want it? Do you want the full version of it? And one that he clicks yes. I'm not sure that you should do that, but be aware that this might also be an effect you encounter when you think about speed and perception. So, if this was too long and you want to have it in short, what we said in the beginning, be as fast as you can. Like, don't overstep that and just say, okay, we work about the perception. We heard that talk about perception, like, don't work on the service on real speed. No. We don't just perception. Please be nice and be as fast as you can. But when you are as fast as you can, look where there's still waiting time, especially on a slow 3G. When we sit in front of our laptops developing, we don't feel that because for us, it's super fast. Someone out on a slow bandwidth, but also maybe a slow CPU, will completely differently perceive that. So be aware that you guide and maybe also entertain a bit on the road and work on that anticipation. If there's a long waiting time, explain. Also when you in a shopping experience, you buy something and they will send you this nice messages sending your order was accepted, we prepared your package was sent, and you already feel that something is going on there, and they explain to you why it will take a day or 2 or 3. If you want it even shorter than that, if it was still too long, the illusion of speed is the expectation, the reality, and the perception. Those are 3 variables you have to consider. Oh, and finally Andrew answered that I will survive and have his number. Oh, no. Yeah, that's also true there. So, going on a meta level there, what are we at the end? Like, are we now very specially focused front-end engineers, or are we even more experienced, advanced UI designers, and we set that as our new title? I think what we are truly is we are caretakers. Look at the users as your children. You want to take care of them. They enter a completely new world when they enter your website. They haven't seen your website before. They don't know how it will work. They don't know who you are. They don't know if they can trust you. So please take care about them, guide them, lead them, think of them. And also make sure, like maybe a little usability test to make sure how they perceive it, if they perceive it well, or they might have some questions you would like to answer. So be responsive to them and answer that. Thank you. So now it's like 8-9 minutes left. So if you like, you can raise questions, any remarks you can have, or maybe you also tried something to work on the perception of the user. So if you have any experience or recommendations, you can just... Can we have some light? No, but some mic. Oh, oh yeah, you're loud enough. You can also pass the mic. Say it again?
What do you think about mini games when things load, like Snake and that?
I think if you're in a gaming context, that's super nice. Like those football games where you practice already, I think that's a wonderful way to bridge that gap. If you're maybe more serious, then it might be hard to play a game in there. That might depend a bit on your users if they would like that. Also saw a business gamification where they tried that. Maybe it can work, but be careful, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was one here and then, no?
Just a remark.
Oh, okay. Then you're there.
Okay, so I would like to ask about Twitter example. Yeah, I like the example and shows good practice there. But by your experience, what would be best practice to have a fallback when action is failed? Okay, just turning on the like button. Okay, it might be deceiving to users. Should we do something else about that, or?
You're talking about the last part of the optimistic UI?
Yeah, just pressing favorite and like I like it. And if it fails, how should we behave in that scenario?
Yeah, that's a good question. If it fails, so Twitter just went back and it didn't tell me because it's not important to me. If it's more important, maybe I changed an address and it didn't make it through, I would like to be notified that the old address is still on my phone. Then I think you should tell your users, sorry, something went back, that's what you try to, that what went wrong, and hopefully you can offer some options of retrying, of keeping it in the loop, or trying to take care and what you also would like in that situation, not just an error, but some
meaningful message.
And also maybe how you can resolve that. So I'm very happy if an app tells me that doesn't work because you don't have internet connection, and not just that doesn't work. I don't know why. All right, good question. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You had a remark? You would say that? That's that one on.
Actually, now I have two remarks. The second one is that Twitter actually goes back to you and tells you that the action failed in the upper part of the screen. It's not always very noticeable, but it does.
That's true.
I use it extensively. And the first remark was that sometimes people tend to use these things. In my experience in one company, we had a longer loading screen, so we added the stories, as you said, but over time, our loading screens got much faster with optimizations. And now we had a new task because the users didn't have time to read the loading screens stories. So now we added 2 seconds wait time after the loading is done, so the users can read the story. So don't fall into that trap.
Thanks very much for sharing that. Anything else? Good. Then I want to also say thank you to the team. Not mention that we're hiring, and here are the slides and contacts. So if you have anything you would like to talk, it's one of my favorite topics. So just feel free to come now or later or tomorrow. If you see me, it's something I'm always on to talk about. Thank you. Enjoy the conference.